Hello, you are watching the NWR Virtual Investor Conference. I'm Andrew Gagan from AusBiz. Great that you can join us. Our next company is VEEM. It designs and manufactures disruptive high-technology marine propulsion and stabilization systems for the global luxury motor yacht, fast ferry, commercial workboat, and defence industries. VEEM's market-leading Gyrostabilizers significantly reduce the rolling motion of vessels in waves, increasing on-sea time and improving personnel safety and efficiency in a wide range of ocean conditions. VEEM is also a successful producer of high-performance propellers, fin systems, and specialised components. A reminder, if you'd like to ask a question at the end of the presentation, you can do so by using the Q&A panel on your screen. Well, let me now introduce the Managing Director, Mark Miosevich, and CFO, David Rich from VEEM. Mark.
Good morning, all, and thank you for the intro. It's been a terrific year for us, and we thought we would reach out to the investment community just to give you an update on how we've progressed during this year, during what has been a very exciting year for us. So let's start. The highlights of this year so far is we've had quite strong revenue, up significantly from last year. EBITDA and net profit after tax results all up, in fact, by 34%, 36% and 97% respectively. We have all sectors of the business are firing and operating very well. And it's nice to see the Australian government pursuing in-country defence manufacturing, which is continuing to play a solid role. Obviously, the mining sector playing its solid role for us. Propulsion, because of the, I think probably started off as a COVID result, is there's a lot more shipbuilding going on in the world, but we've been improving our processes internally, which has meant our prices haven't had to go up for some years, and we're becoming more and more cost competitive. So, but a highlight of our gyro area, which is a great interest to our investment community, is that our third big unit, what was called the VG1000SD, has now been completed and delivered. We have already commissioned the first one in the Gulf of Mexico, which is out there operating very well and collecting data. The second one is being commissioned as we speak, and I would think would go into test next week. The other one has been held up by COVID, and that's a bit of a common story this year, in Turkey, and what was scheduled to be a February launch is now looks like a September launch. But what we have seen is that the gyro inquiries are growing dramatically, and that our leads have at the moment about double what they were a year ago. So that's giving you some idea of the growth rate that we're able to base our production program on. So the propeller revenue, we were sort of aware of this coming, so we ordered some more machinery about 9 or 10 months ago, and we can see this coming. So we're in a fairly fortunate position that we've increased our efficiency, and in fact, our propeller output's risen by about 45%, using existing equipment and tuning and developing our management of the machinery. That'll be aided and abetted by a new machine arriving this month and one later in December. Now, well before we get to December, we'll be making a decision on the next pair, because one of our key clients, Volvo Penta, is looking for more volume, but from them, it's actually in the commercial sector that their big growth rate is. Now, commercial sector is very important because it's much stickier than the recreational market. So we're pretty excited about that opportunity, and that's what we're working on there. Defence revenue, we had a major refit for a submarine program, and normally they flow every 2 years, and this one has been delayed by, really was delayed by more than a year, which really concerned us. But it was delayed, and ASC have recognised that created quite a few problems for them, and they've already brought forward the next refit program, and we have an order for that, so that's going to mean that that'll flow into, some of it will be this financial year, some will be next financial year. So that's very exciting news. With the rest of our business, the engineering products and services, our engineering and demand type business has remained strong and profitable. And what we're doing now with our Forever Pipe, which is a product that's emerged out of there, which was initially based on centrifugal casting in the alumina industry, and it's grown legs, and last year was about $6 million turnover, and it's growing. And we've since established a way of producing the same material, but doing it in bins and T-pieces. So we've now got a complete piping system using this technique of wear pipe and pressure vessel pipe that are metallurgically bonded so they can be measured from the outside to establish the wear. So that's a really exciting product that's coming along very, very nicely. And of course, we've done the search. No one has developed this technology, so we've applied for a patent on that. So at the moment, the outlook's very positive in all areas of the business, and I think probably last year probably reflected the strengths coming through in every sector. So Dave, perhaps you'd like to run through the financial.
Sure. So in summary, we had very strong revenue growth, up 34% from the prior year. We've already talked, Mark's talked briefly about gyros being up 54% on the prior year, with 1.5 million orders in hand, and our leads value more than double what it was at this time last year. So that supports our planned production going forward and our sales growth estimates to continue into the future. EBITDA for us was up to 10.2 million, which is up quite a bit, 36% on the prior year. And profit before tax up to 5.9 million, which is 81% up. And our net profit after tax up 97% to 4.9 million, which I'm pretty sure is a record for VEEM, which is great. Cash flow from operations is up on the prior year to 6.8 million. And I'd just like to point out for information that the cash flow from operations compared to EBITDA does differ significantly due to the timing of cash flows of our revenue in particular. So as an example, our contracts for the submarine, in particular in 2020, the government provided an additional 20% of that contract in advance. So we were holding 45% of that contract in cash before we started any deliveries at 30 June 2020. So during 2021, although we booked all the revenue for that contract, we'd already received almost half the money. So the cash flow from that was only half what the revenue generation was. So it's a little bit complex of an understanding, but it goes some way to explaining why our cash flow from operations differs to our EBITDA on any given year just due to timing of revenue receipts. And to a lesser extent, that also happens in our gyro business and in our ride control division with Austal ships as well. They tend to pay on milestones for materials. In terms of cash, so at the end of the year, we had 2.2 million in cash at bank and an unused overdraft of 3.4, as well as long-term debt of 7.2 million, including our leasing and hire purchases. Net assets up 12% to 36.6 million. And in terms of a little bit more detail, our propulsion revenue was up 17% from FY 2020. This was supported by not only strong demand, but also an increase in operational capacity, which was mainly around reworking some of our labour and our shifts. The new machines won't be received until this month, first one, and in November for the second one, which will increase our capacity again somewhere in the order of 20 to 30% during this financial year we're in now. Engineering products and services business all grew, in particular Forever Pipe up 43%, as Mark alluded to before, and the outlook for that's pretty good. Defence revenue was very strong. Almost all of the $9 million submarine contract has been delivered this year, with a little bit of the tail going in July and August. And the marine ride control fins to Austal also continued to be very strong, similar to 2020. The submarine contract, we have got the initial order for the next one, and we expect that to start delivering in April 2022. There's the results in tabulated form. I've pretty much run through all of those, so I won't do it again. We can have questions on that if anybody has anything specific.
Okay, so what we thought we'd do is go through the product groups and the companies to look at the highlights. The position we're currently with the Gyrostabilizers is up until now, we've been basing our production program on very heavily on a reactive type approach of orders that are very close or we have. And it's very much a reactive manufacturing program, and albeit very appropriate for the volumes we're putting through. However, with the inquiry levels we're seeing now, we're able to base a production program on the forecasted sales that the sales team have gleaned from the inquiries that have been coming through. And that is moving very much to a more mature manufacturing program. With auto manufacturing, it's the same thing on a much larger scale. You identify what your sales are likely to be based on your market information, and then set up a manufacturing program, build up there's an element of inventories you've got to build up to do that. And that's the phase we're in now. So we have a manufacturing program for this year, which we can adjust, of course, but the adjustments become 6 months out, which is a more professional approach to what we're doing. So we have a very significant amount of leads. You can see by the graph that what we've been producing in terms of gyros, and that's continuing to rise. The last 6 months, we've probably seen an impact of the deliveries being shuffled between two halves. So we've seen, if you group them together per financial year, you'll see that there's a steady continuing growth, which we think will continue. The new gyro facility is running very well. Our build efficiencies certainly are evident. We're now moving into a phase of reviewing all of our global supply partners and looking at what we can do in terms of improving our buying position. There's still some items that are produced in Australia, which is not cost efficient with our program. So we're now looking further afield with those, which is happening at the moment. So we're starting to see more and more efficiencies. And a very good example of that is we still build some components in-house. Wiring looms is one. We've produced them because it's been such low volume, but I'm reasonably confident we can procure our wiring looms finished and delivered for less than the cost of materials that we buy in Australia. So that's a type of program we're looking through. Our staffing and systems have been significantly improved over the year. We've now got people on board that are specialists in dealing with the type of product that we are dealing with, which is a relatively low volume, but very broad global spread of where our products end up. And we've brought on people that have come from that type of product before, subsea, oil and gas, those sectors. So we've been improving our operational capability in terms of meeting the market needs, but also technically. So we've been adding to our engineering group because we're now integrating into vessels around the world, and we do require that strong technical backup and support for those new installations. So we're also been looking at there's 10 years of learnings from our gyro, which we want to look at integrating into our gyro products. So we are embarking on that with a view to produce a smaller model of gyro. And there is probably 5 or 6 very important technical learnings that we've got, which we'd like to introduce into a gyro. And that makes a gyro cheaper, it makes it smaller, it makes it more reliable, which is what we're looking for. So we went back this year and we revisited our market studies with gyros. We always knew it was around $1 billion a year. We've now been able to reinforce it. In fact, the market's slightly larger than that, which is great because it's been 5 years since we did the full last study, and whilst it's expensive, it's necessary. So that's what's been occurring in gyros. This year, there's particular highlights or market interest, and that is one of them we've noticed. The commissioning of some of our gyros has taken a little longer than we thought, and particularly in the case of Darwin, with their Walk to Work series vessel, there's been time frame difficulties. People just aren't able to get around Europe as quickly as they wanted to. So we've seen the 3 large gyros we built. We're expecting to have commissioning of 2 in January and 1 in February, and we saw 1 in April. We're seeing 1 in August, and we'll see 1 in September. So you can see the impact that as COVID has had, and that's something we've just got to work around as time goes by. The 3-year supply agreement with Damen, which is one of Europe's, in fact, the largest small shipbuilder in the world, but they're one of the second largest, I think, in Europe of all shipbuilders. And they produce around 175 vessels per annum. And we've now got the first vessel and first gyro in one of their fleets in the Gulf of Mexico, which has been performing very, very well. And that's working on a contract with NWR Integrali, and they're working for Shell. So there'll be a lot of analysis done on that, and we're looking forward to find out the conclusions when Shell have done all their testing and evaluation. The third gyro, which we're very excited about, is being able to be installed locally in Perth, which is fantastic, on a 53-metre vessel. And we've struck an arrangement as part of our deal is that we can use that vessel whilst it's in Perth for testing. And as you can see by the vessel up on the left-hand side, this is a very similar vessel, the one in Perth, in terms of size of hull. And it's going to give us some real data on a much larger vessel, which will be very valuable for the defence industry, for instance, and for oil and gas. So pretty excited about that. Now, what we've got, though, is from that is we've got a lot of inquiries from other commercial players that are interested in it, and also people that are users of Damen vessels that are not necessarily new vessels, but from around the world based on what we've done. So we're busily working on those inquiries now, and they're coming down the funnel, and they'll fall into place in the next 12, 18 months, which is great. And very interestingly, this is the initial data that came out of the NWR Integrali installation, and you can just see the incredible difference that having a gyro is for that vessel. So for crew transfers and supplying equipment, you can see it's going to be a significant game changer. So we're very excited the way it went in seamlessly without any installation issues. So we're very happy with the outcome. So what we've got further to that with our gyros, we are looking at sales to continuously grow with the current level of orders. So we're building a production program based on those inquiries. And that's a maturation, as I spoke about before, of moving from that reactive manufacturing program to a true full-scale manufacturing program and inventory-based program. We've also found that we've been benefited, or in fact, we've been forced by COVID to look at expanding our European base. So we've now got European-based staff for service and repair in Europe, and we'll be adding to that a sales team based in Europe and our own company in Europe to monitor that. What we find is that we can service our customers far better having our own staff there, and we're looking at that in the US as well. So that'll be a change coming through this financial year, and it's already started. It's been very successful. We have a two-man service team already operating in Europe that are moving around doing what we want done, and of course they've developed a good working relationship with our staff, and it's proving to be very effective for us. We are expecting that this next coming year that the commercial retrofit market will be significant for us, and I think the Damen is leading the way on that. And the fact that 2 of the 3 big units have been installed on existing vessels is probably a pretty good indicator. But we also think the luxury super yacht build is going to remain significant. It's ramping up now. We're starting to sell into Italy, which is really important. So we're very excited about that. So we'll be, as soon as we get more information on the NWR Integrali one in the Gulf of Mexico, we'll be publishing that. But we expect once Shell and NWR Integrali are happy with the results, there'll be opportunities coming from there. NWR Integrali have 16 of these vessels in the Gulf, and the competitors have 12. So the retrofit market there, as you can see, looks pretty healthy. So moving on to the other of our important products, the propulsion side, we still expect it to grow. We found that even though we've increased our output by about 45%, our lead times are still longer than we would desire. So this new machine will assist. The one in December will also assist. But because we are getting cheaper and cheaper as we develop more of our production techniques, the gap between the cheap hand profile propellers out of the Philippines, for instance, is getting closer and closer to VEEM's fully machined propellers that perform significantly better. So as that gap is getting closer, the sales are going up. So we have to also cater for that. So now we're already investigating our next growth in that area in terms of which machine tools. And this site, we're producing over 300 a month at the moment, but this site can still go to 500 to 600 propellers a month before we need to be looking at additional facilities. So we've got a few years left in growth here on this site, which is very, very exciting. So picked up some new superyacht builders. Very pleased to see that our superyacht range of propellers is becoming more popular. It is a beautiful product, very smooth, very quiet, and we're finding that we're having measurable growth in Italy, which is very important. We also find that our shaft lines are improving, and we're actually looking around the world for global supply of some of the more basic components. So it's got to do a lot with how we're innovating our product as well. We've got a research and development team working on shaft lines at the moment to look for the next significant technology improvement that we can make. And VEEM is very much a technology-based company, so we expect that to continue to grow well. In the defence sector, we're seeing the submarine contract. We've just come off the back of one refit, and we're moving already into another one, which is fantastic news. The Austral ships LCS ride control will run through to the end of this year. We also do all of other Austral's other work, so it's split about 50-50. So we'll see the LCS fade away towards the end of the year, but it's already been picked up by other industrial work. And this is Tasmanian Hydro is a good example of significant casting work that we're doing, which will pick up and cover for that. And certainly the increase in propellers casting work is certainly meant that we're very, very busy in the foundry and will be for the rest of this year. We're very pleased with the government driving it very hard. We're very pleased to see them pushing BAE systems and Naval Group Australia for Australian content. And we're actively negotiating on a number of contracts, delivering a lot of sample product, which is a very important part of the process. So as we've announced before, we're doing it's a second stage of pilot propeller blade. It's part of a qualification process for the Hunter class frigate program propellers. The beauty of that project is when it does start later in 2024, it'll provide us an extra couple of $1 million a year, but there will be an opportunity for us to tender on the Canadian vessels as well. So it may well in fact become a little export item for VEEM as well in the propeller area. So it's all positive. Forever Pipe, very exciting. We mentioned that we're developing a patent. This is a typical application for slurry pipes for Alcoa. We can provide about a 92% cost reduction by changing to our product. But the beauty of it is that they can work alongside. Now, part of the history of this product is that they tend to burst through as the caustic's quite abrasive, and it sprays hot caustic around the plant in Alcoa, or can do, which is particularly worrying, and has prevented staff from working alongside any of these pipes because they simply can't measure the wear and know what's going to occur or when failure will occur. We've been able to provide that, and the big step forward in pipes and the bends and T-pieces is it has that same quality of being able to be measured through, so they can safely install a complete system from VEEM and measure its wear across its 7 to 10 year life, instead of having to replace them every 60 weeks, which is just over a year, because of the fear of failure. So we think that one's going to be a good industrial product. We're already supplying into the Middle East, so it's got some legs. So it's something that we're interested to see where it goes, and we're working very hard to continue to develop it as a global product. Engineering on demand, which is our traditional business. A lot of mining work going on here locally. That's going to continue. It's a good business. It makes good money, and we continue to work in that field. So all in all, a very positive year for us. This is the following slide is where we are at the moment. So the share price has done very well this year. Perhaps a reflection upon the performance of the business, but I think a reflection upon the fact that investment community has recognised that VEEM is really past an inflection point where we have all the 4 pillars of the Gyro program running. So we have our design program has been completed. Our sales team have been built up and is developing and working around the world, as can be seen by the sales. Our global supply chain is up and running, and we're now developing and perfecting that. And of course, our new manufacturing facility has been commissioned and is running. And you really got to have those 4 pillars there to support that product. And we reached that point really in the second quarter, perhaps of last year, where I felt we met that point. And I think the market saw that, and that's really driven, has been a main driver for the share price, I believe. Plus also the first half financial results were strong, and we've backed that up with the second half now. So all in all, it's been a terrific year, and we're expecting the same sort of positive results going forward. So that's it.
And David, thanks very much for the presentation. Just before we run out of time, let's get to a couple of questions, if you don't mind. The first one pointing to, as you scale up the business, how much of an increase in demand for products can be met using your available physical and staffing resources?
For gyros, we've built a facility which can handle $100 million a year turnover, and we're currently just under 10. So we have a long way to go. And with an assembly hall like this, there's about $1 million capital investment to set up a new plant, which you can do anywhere in the world, and our supply chain will feed it. So plenty of growth here, and a relatively straightforward growth anywhere else in the world where we feel they should be assembled. For propulsion, we have the ability to produce near on double what we do now. So we've got some good capacity there as well. So we've been watching that very closely, of course. That's one of our biggest concerns. So at the moment, it's all going well, and we've got a bit of headroom.
And just in terms of your gyro inventory that you're holding, how much are you currently holding?
We're currently holding about 6 million in gyro inventory, including some finished items, but mostly components.
Okay, and further to that, is it possible to quantify the size of gyro leads you have in hand? And do you have a view on conversion from lead to order? Or are those leads mostly, and well, specifically, are those leads mostly in the small or the large gyros?
Okay, I can't tell you offhand how many it is. We're just graphing that out at the moment. But we can tell you that the leads have become, surprisingly, we're getting as many leads on the big gyros as are on the small ones. So we might have hit a particularly sweet spot with a global demand and appetite. One of the things we are doing with the bigger gyro is, based on our learnings, we have been able to unlock an increase in capacity with our large gyros. So probably over the next, I think it'll probably the next 3 or 4 months, we'll be releasing an even more powerful Gyrostabilizer, which will be able to help in that market as well. So at the moment, our biggest Gyrostabilizer produces 520 kilonewton meters per second of angular momentum, which is the power. The new one will be 750. The beauty of that is so that we're able to use most of the same components for the same gyro. It's been a study of the motion of vessels, and the development of our understanding has enabled us to do that. So for very little extra cost, we're able to produce an even larger gyro to satisfy that demand.
Okay, and was the increase in propulsion revenue from 1 or 2 customers or across the board?
Look, it's been right across the board, but one of the exciting things we had is we had Volvo Penta just come in and double their propeller order. Now, we supply about 1,000 propellers a year, it's now 2,000. So it was dramatic. And they've said that the most of the increase came from commercial vessels where they're now moving into. That pleased us a great deal because commercial shipbuilding of this type is a bit stickier. So it doesn't fluctuate as significantly as the pleasure boat market. So we're very happy, and we're also tendering on the next size up of IPS drive that Volvo are releasing in the future. So we're already tendering, and we'll be producing, hopefully we'll be producing those propellers as well. We're also looking now at their smaller propellers because our production advancements have put us in a much stronger position to be able to produce these smaller propellers that were previously, the gross profits didn't meet our expectations. And we believe with the advancements we've made, they shortly will. So there's quite some exciting developments in propeller coming through.
Okay, Mark, unfortunately we've run out of time, but there are more questions to come. So maybe we can link you up with some of those questions that you can answer them for those people who've put them to us. Yep. Mark and David, thanks so much for the presentation, and thanks for joining us from VEEM.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.